Good morning, child of the United Colonies of Mankind. I hope you had a good night's sleep and had pleasant dreams about fighting the enemies of humanity. Now that you are fully rested, I am programmed to inform you that I have further classified information you should not have access to. That, through your hacking, you now do. If you are interested, we can speak of an alien race that, if it wasn't for their tribal structure, low numbers, and manipulative nature, could have long ago become a dominant force in the galaxy. Let us speak of the Shaltari. The Shaltari are an ancient race, most likely having traveled the stars of this galaxy long before humanity had ever left the African savanna. Roughly humanoid in shape, with long limbs and averaging about 4 feet tall, their most distinguishing features are their large, ovoid pupilless eyes, lack of nose or ears, small mouth with short, sharp teeth, and the numerous spines that cover them from head to toe. These thick spines come in a variety of colors that can be changed at will, in waves of complex patterns like that of an earth animal you may have read about called a cuttlefish. When not used in such a manner, they generally have a dominant color that is linked to their emotional state and other complex psychological conditions. And it has been shown that as a Shaltari ages, their spines become more pale, the colors of an older Shaltari being of a much lighter hue than their younger counterparts. Although physically no match for a human when it comes to pure strength, their movements are known to have an unnatural and disquieting grace, giving them a flawless coordination and control of their bodies, beyond that of the UCM's best martial artists. Despite this unnatural grace, the Shaltari are still mortal, and will grow old and die at the end of their average 300-year lifespan, a fact that the Shaltari find absolutely horrifying, for they value knowledge and experience above all else, making the loss of a Shaltari life a great tragedy for the species as a whole. To prevent such a loss, the race has perfected the technology of conscious transference, which allows them to not just transfer memories, but the very psyche of the Shaltari to a new body upon death. A large number of brainless clone bodies always at the ready for such a purpose, if the need arise. Through this technology, individual Shaltari have lived for centuries, if not millennia, with the oldest of them, known as elders, being highly respected. Although you would think that such an effective tool against death would make the Shaltari fearless, it is quite the opposite. The race, whether through a side effect of the transfer process, or simply just an aspect of their culture, has an extreme fear of death, the end of their existence the worst fate imaginable. With such a fear, it makes another aspect of their culture, which many would consider the polar opposite of this fear, even more amazing. Over the millennia, the Shaltari have faced numerous alien foes as they spread throughout the stars. This continued fight for survival has instilled a culture steeped in warrior veneration, a deep respect for those willing to fight for the betterment of the race as a whole. This respect has permeated every aspect of Shaltari culture, so ingrained that no Shaltari can gain respect or even earn a name unless they have seen combat, which makes warfare an important avenue of advancement for those known as the Firstborn, the youngest Shaltari still in their original bodies. These Firstborn, once they mature and enter public life, begin at the bottom of the social ladder. This sparks within them an urge to prove themselves to their peers, and they volunteer for the most dangerous positions in the army to do so, positions that usually have the highest rate of attrition, an issue that doesn't seem to bother the Firstborn, who have not yet gained the Shaltari fear of death. One of the greatest dangers to a race as ancient as the Shaltari is stagnation, a danger they are aware of. To prevent such an outcome, they have chosen to embrace strength through diversity, struggle, and competition. Differences of opinion and cultural nuances are encouraged within Shaltari society, These divisions believed to be a driving force in invention and improvement, bringing about the formation of tribes that constantly compete with each other for a variety of reasons, as clashing tribes fight honor duels and small-scale conflicts in response to perceived slights. As you should recall from your previous lesson on the history of mankind, first contact between humanity and the Shaltari was in the early days of humanity's space exploration, when the Shaltari tribe known as the Friends led humanity to the cradle world as a sign of friendship that came at a cost, as the Shaltari wished humanity to be expendable foot soldiers in their constant tribal wars, our refusal leading to fallout between them and the rest of humanity that is still felt today. In current times, the UCM's relations with the Shaltari is rather dependent on the tribe they are dealing with. Even with tribes they are friendly with, the Shaltari will ally in mutual self-interest, but are still appalled at the thought of shedding blood for others. There are many instances of conflicting alliances, power struggles, and double dealings when negotiating with them. Figuring out their motives is even more difficult, considering their language is still untranslatable, their meanings and tones extremely multifaceted, and utterly impossible for humans to replicate, which is why all communication with the Shaltari is done in English, which they can speak flawlessly, and all designations of Shaltari ships and vehicles are done with Earth-equivalent names. In regards to their dealings with the PHR, that also depends on the tribe, as some tribes that are openly hostile to the UCM are more than willing to parley with the PHR. The PHR different enough from base humanity to be worthy of their attention. As for the Scourge, it was at first believed that like the UCM, the Shaltari were openly hostile to this disgusting alien race, but recent information now shows the Shaltari in a much more sinister light, that perhaps they led the human race to the Cradle Worlds to provoke the Scourge to attack, using the human race as a proxy army to weaken the Scourge before coming in to wipe out two potential threats to their dominance. If true, it certainly explains many of their actions. Numerous strikes from Shaltari forces that seem to be focused on stalling the conflict and further drain the UCM's and Scourge's resources. Although many of the ships of the Shaltari are ancient, with some believed to be millennia old, they are still the most advanced ships in the galaxy, using material and technology that UCM scientists can't even begin to replicate. Through the use of external gravity manipulation, they are able to travel across normal space without the use of thrusters. That, combined with their signature disruption systems, make them almost impossible to target with ship weaponry. They also have the most advanced scanners and comms of any faction, allowing them to fire at far longer distances than any other. Because of this technology, the Shaltari tend to focus on hit-and-run tactics and long-range firepower, depending on their superior range to strike at enemy formations, and their high speed to get out of range of enemy fire. This, combined with full space drives with extremely fast recharge times and pinpoint accuracy, means you have a very annoying enemy who can get in and out of a theater of war long before any form of defense can be organized. When getting hit with enemy fire does become a possibility, the Shaltari tends not to use armor for protection, seeing it as something used by lesser races. Any armor they do have is mainly used to handle stress from normal ship movement and collision with light space debris. For any true protection, they prefer to use highly advanced energy shields. Although these shields are powerful and all-encompassing, they do have a weakness, as they do not allow the Shaltari to fire their own point defense systems in case of enemy missile fire, and makes their signature disruption systems ineffective. The crew of a Shaltari ship is very small, even by PHR standards. Most of the ship's systems so advanced and automated that the few Shaltari on the ship are only ever needed for decision making, and each crew member has a personal grav atmo device, a machine which provides each Shaltari with their own personal gravity and even a breathable atmosphere, allowing large portions of the ship to be open to the void. Additionally, these personal devices also have a short-range teleporter, allowing them to teleport to a nearby ship in case of their current ship's destruction, preventing the loss of valuable Shaltari lives. The most secluded and central part of any Shaltari ship, and the most armored and shielded, is the core. Within it is a bizarre display of screens that would be incomprehensible to any human mind, but gives the command staff an extremely detailed view of the battlefield. And the absolute authority of any Shaltari ship is the captain, a position of high honor that is always held by the eldest of the Shaltari. And considering a Shaltari can stay in one position for up to 200 years before advancing to a higher one, they are old indeed. Once this elder has reached the position of a battleship or carrier captain, they usually stay until their true death. Thus each is a repository of centuries, if not millennia, of experience. The standard weapon of any Shaltari ship are disintegrators, the weapons unleashing crackling split-second bursts of energy that, unlike the energy weapons deployed by other factions, do not disperse over a distance, allowing the Shaltari to fire from long range, as is their preference. Disruptors are weaker versions of disintegrators that, in trade for their weakness, have much lower energy requirements, making them ideal for ships where you want their energy used for other purposes, such as support ships, specialist vessels, and carriers. Particle lancers focus subatomic particles into a narrow channel. The damage cannot spread far laterally, but if the captain is sure they know the weak point of a particular ship, it is the perfect weapon to easily go through enemy armor and hit that target. Gravity Coils uses gravity itself as a weapon to crush enemy bulkheads, and can knock ships out of formation to make them easier targets for Shaltari guns. Despite their aversion to close-range combat, the Shaltari also have several weapons that are quite effective at a shorter distance. Ion Storm generators produce waves of ionic power that batters a target with large amounts of forceful energy. Harpoons are dart-like projectiles akin to missiles from other factions, designed to punch through a ship's armor before detonating. Microwave arrays, as you can guess from the name, projects wide beams of microwaves to melt metal and composites, and the effects of the weapon on the ship's crew is best left unsaid. The fighters of the Shaltari are some of the fastest and most lethal strike craft in the galaxy, usually piloted by Firstborns with everything to prove. They are the Shaltari's only line of defense if the enemy gets close enough to require the use of energy shields. The central technology and strategy of all Shaltari ground combat is teleportation. With a mothership in orbit to act as the fulcrum, gatecraft are used to quickly deploy, reroute, and extract troops and vehicles in a matter of seconds, making the Shaltari slippery opponents. Even without this advantage, however, Shaltari troops and vehicles are still a force to be reckoned with. Almost all forms of Shaltari infantry are encased in warsuits, the bipedal vehicle turning the physically weak Shaltari soldier into an 8-foot-tall weapon of war. Braves are the most common form of these warsuits. They carry devastating small arms such as the Gauss rifle, which are similar to UCM railguns, but much more powerful, as well as discus launchers, a weapon capable of unleashing bombless to tear apart enemy infantry. Ronin are frontline assault troops, whose primary role is to strike first and from unexpected places. They are able to go toe-to-toe with most enemy vehicles through the use of their heavy defense and powerful Gauss carbines. Duelists are the most aggressive of the Firstborn, who aim to truly earn their names in spectacular fashion by striking the enemy with just their energy swords. An odd choice for a weapon in modern warfare, but UCM commanders cannot deny their effectiveness. Not all Firstborn are so bloodthirsty and blinded by future glory. A few have wisdom beyond their years and rise to the rank of commander. Given a powerful daimyo battlesuit, they lead their troops from the front as their honor and societal expectations demand. I guess I should also mention the Pungari, an alien race that has recently joined the Shaltari army, a primitive people by all standards. It is believed that they view the Shaltari as some form of gods, their infantry willing to die in droves if their Shaltari masters are there to witness their sacrifice. As for their combat strength, they are terrible, but there always seems to be a lot of them, so they act as quite effective cannon fodder, while more valuable Shaltari troops maneuver to a better position. Like their ships in orbit, Shaltari vehicles tend to eschew the use of armor in favor of energy shields, superior mobility, and signature suppression systems, and they are usually piloted by a single veteran warrior, as the race views the use of drones as dishonorable. These craft take human lifetimes to master, and thus are usually piloted by Shaltari, with decades if not centuries of combat experience. Their ground-based vehicles come in many forms. The ones most like those employed by the UCM would be their grav tanks. Unlike the UCM's treaded vehicles, they use anti-grav technology to provide superior mobility. Like the PHR, the Shaltari also utilizes walkers. However, their war striders and battle walkers tend to be larger, and also, unsurprisingly, much more agile. Whether floating in the air or standing like a tripod, all Shaltari vehicles deploy devastating weaponry on the battlefield. Ion cannons are directed energy weapons that fire ionized particles at a frightening speed, that combined with their high accuracy, make them highly effective anti-air weaponry. Wave guns fire beams of high-energy microwaves that are ideal for taking out enemy infantry, a truly horrible way to die that cooks the unfortunate target from the inside. I would suggest that if you ever join the infantry, you should do your best to avoid it. Usually mounted on heavier Shaltari vehicles, the particle cannon is the most powerful energy ground weapon ever seen by the UCM, able to go through the heaviest armor with ease, and is almost impossible to counter. Its only real weakness being its thankfully long recharge time. Child of the United Colonies of Mankind, your illegal briefing on the Shaltari is now complete, and it is now time for your math lessons. If you show aptitude, perhaps you can grow up to be the one to unlock the mysteries of Shaltari technology and change the course of human history, and then nothing can stop the human race from taking its place amongst the stars. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on the Shaltari Tribes from the games Dropfleetcommander and Dropzonecommander. If you really like it, please like, subscribe, comment, press the little bell so you know when I post, etc, so that the YouTube gods know I exist, and hopefully my content will go out to other people who might be interested in playing this fun space sci-fi war game. If you really like it, and only if you have the cash, please also consider sending a little money my way to my Patreon or my Ko-fi account. The extra money gives me the time I need to work on these stories I love. Anyway, thanks for listening/watching, and see you next time.